So hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. This is a quick video that I wanted to do because I just made a much longer video that is available on my channel. It is just in Italian and it's about the reality that they have in Italy about those type of vehicles. To be more precise, it's about the exchanging from an old Golf MK4 from the late 90s to the modern Fiat Panda as a real car. So there is a video that is about 45 minutes that maybe you can have as translated video also in the Italian version of my videos, and which I will not make in the same way for the English version of the video. For the English version, I just want to concentrate on the modification I made on this Volkswagen Golf, and not really about the die-cast. This is briefly and shortly the neither so new item Burago die-cast of the Fiat Panda, that is of course a very cheap die-cast made after the 3D files from Stellantis group, ex-Fiat group. So it's basically completely perfect in the external shape and dimension and in details like the wheels and so on, and of course with the ridiculous details of a modern die-cast. The point is that is a toy that costs, I think, about $15, something like that, so that is a chapter. But I don't think neither that people around the world knows this type of vehicles, and I don't know neither if they sell, honestly, the little Fiat Panda, despite it's an excellent car, especially in the hybrid version, which I just took it, as exchange of that older version, old Golf that I had. And it's a car that is able to run for about 800 kilometers in full autonomy range of usage. The Golf that I wanted to talk about indeed is the Golf that Tamiya made, the original box for the Golf MK4. It is just available as a kit from Tamiya, which made the version the VR6 2.8 for motion. It was the top level of the MK4 Golf, which I used and modified in the basic level of the Golf. So at the time this was my vehicle in the years when I had the shop. So until as you probably know, until 2012, sorry, I had a modeling shop in Milano city, downtown Milano, which I cannot stand because if you know me, you know that I badly prefer the forest, the Scandinavian reality, so I don't like cities. I cannot live in cities. For me is really too much oppressive style of life, and despite the business was quite decent, I anyway decided to switch in the dimension that I am today, like a short run producer for raising kit and private modeler, so something that remains like a passion but is no longer the main activity that I have to support myself. And in these years indeed I had the real shop, the real physical shop, which probably some of you also visited between the 90s and the early 2000s. As I said, until 2012 I was present in Milano city, and this was the car that moved me every day to go to work. And in this configuration I wanted to modify. Later on in the video we'll make an explanation of how I modified the car from Tamiya to make it become like this type of Golf that is not exactly the same identical vehicle, but I wanted to reproduce this model, as you can see, with all the boxes from Tamiya, from Italy, and from Amazon, even if at the time it was not so much Amazon, that arrived later, but just for your info. And inside, as you can see, there is a small box of the Fiat trucks and the Tamiya Model magazine on the back. So it was exactly my reality when I was around to supplier to take models, to bring it to the shop and to sell it. So it's a personal memories that I wanted to have about this car. In the specific version that I had to made, the car which I owned was, you see also I made of course the proper road plate of my car at the time, and with the Italian road plate a little different from the rest of the European road plate of the periods, the same for the back. I also recreated the scratch that I had on the car, the little side scratch. This was so typical when you live in the cities and you have a car that is like the Golf was completely painted also over the bumpers and so on. So unfortunately the level of civilization in the big cities is extremely low, even more in Italian cities, and all the scratches that I had sorry, on this car, they were made by others. It was not me making this type of scratch. And every time that I arrived, despite I am a car freak, I found scratches all over the car, little scratch over the fenders here. And it is also a type of scratch that I personally hated so much because it was not something functional about the car. It was not a broken light, a broken part that you pay somebody, pay a body shop to fix it, so it was just aesthetical scratches which you will constantly keep. I also added the little dents over the door, you know, the typical shit that you have in cities. I had over this car, which I really could not stand because I was taking care so much of this vehicle. You know, the Golf was an excellent car. I've been one of the finest vehicle produced by the Volkswagen in that years. Before they started with this delirium about the electric vehicles, and before 2035 everything have to be electrical, which I badly respect Americans, because they say, okay, if you live in a place where there is the necessity to have this, it's okay, but if I live in the middle of nowhere in Sweden, can I have a Dodge 6 liter completely petrol? I pay the petrol, I have no problem in paying my petrol. Can I have the type of car? No, you have to have an electric Tesla. Okay, I stop it here because, you know, I'm not so keen about this stuff of vehicles. So in Europe there is this foolish stuff that they decided that before 2035 all the cars have to be electric, and I think that if they keep on this way, I'm not so sure that they can maintain that promise they made a time ago. The model indeed was then finished with the roof bars to load all my modeling items, and this was exactly taken like a picture I made at the time during a modeling expo, because this was probably my reality of that type of expo. So it just need a little specific base. You know, right now it's based on the PZI Porsche 935 2019, which will be the object of the future review, which is not really what I'm talking about right now, but soon we will also do that. That I know is much more interesting than an old Golf. But this was really something a little bit personal that I wanted to place it on the channel to keep the memory of this, because this car just have been scrapped in reality, you know, to have the state payment. You know, in Italy there is the law that if you trash an old vehicle, the state pay a big discount if you road plate as a brand new car, a brand new vehicle. So you can take the money, and basically with this Golf it was funny because I took basically the same identical money which I paid the car 23 years ago right now, and I took exactly the same amount of money, which never happens with ordinary cars. So for me it was a great bargain to exchange this in a way wonderful and exceptional vehicle made by Volkswagen. I think is a quality that Volkswagen will never reach it again in new vehicles for too many reasons, for the electronical shit that they have inside today, that they make it extremely complicated. But the construction quality, for a little while I was in the mood to make a small modification, to add a little different radio, to add a navigator, to add some little stuff. You know, I never made invasive works to touch the originality of the vehicle, so I always have been a kind of modeler that like it original, like the factory did, with all the defect that also the factory may have for the time. So I never made huge modification on the vehicle. And I remember that every time that I had to open a panel, an inner side of this vehicle, the quality Volkswagen had in this year was absolutely amazing. It was a type of quality that I will constantly remember. You know, for example, all the cable completely closed and completely sealed, but in a proper way sealed, not just like with tape, just to make it look, because, you know, it's an area that the customer will never see it again. It was really well engineered, the car. The car was absolutely stunning for the years when she was proposed. So we are talking of a vehicle that was of the middle 90s. You know, is absolutely different. I don't say worst or better, I say different from the object that they sell it today for ordinary day use, you know, the ordinary daily car that people use to go to work. You know, the model that I used from Tamiya, to return in the modeling side of all the discussion, it was basically that ultra rare box from Tamiya about the 4Motion 2.8 liter car. It was the bigger version with the bigger engine, 6 cylinder, 2.8 liters, and 4-wheel drive with automatic gear shift. It was an exceptional car. Remember that at the time they were very pricey. These Golfs never have been a cheap vehicle for ordinary people. It was a very good vehicle, never have been a cheap vehicle, the Golf. And already at the time I remember that the top notch of the category of the Golf was in the same price range of a Lotus Elise, to have an idea, because I had a friend that was the maid that made me buy this car as a slightly used car from a girl. And I remember that the original price that they had to pay for the real big Golf was for this other 2.8 was even more expensive than a Lotus Elise. Today the stuff is a little bit different, you know. And indeed, the quality and the type of vehicle was absolutely stunning and absolutely reliable and absolutely really well assembled in the small details. You know, Tamiya made, of course, the highest, the diamond edge of the production of the Golf, which I had to backdate and make something simpler that was into the entry-level vehicle, because this was a car that I didn't buy for fun, I buy just for work, so I need a workhorse and something ultra reliable. So starting from example from the wheels, then we arrive to the main body modification, because of course this is a version that you will never find on the market. But the wheels, as I was saying, I had the problem that the box proposed by Tamiya was of course featuring the full detail, the full optional version of the car, which was performing the alloy rims named the Santa Monica vehicles. In the Golf they had the 2 series of alloy official wheels. Don't look at the back, at the aftermarket series of the wheels. They had the Santa Monica, which was the type of, I think they were also made by BBS at the time, and the previous version, which I bought for this car in reality, that was the Montreal type. It was a little slightly different alloy wheel, but really matching to the design of the car. I don't like this type of vehicles with the BBS, Ultra BBS, F1 or Le Mans rims. It don't fit to this type of car. This is an ordinary daily car, so I had to backdate it because my version that I owned was not featuring, of course, the alloy expensive wheels of the highest level, and I found this wheels that was nearly resembling completely the wheel coming from it was sorry, a part of wheel coming from the Fujimi box of the Mercedes 190 DTM, which was featuring a 16-inch. I don't know where they took that measure, because the real correct wheel for that Mercedes you can find from I made it over my Mercedes, the West car, and it was coming from a Tamiya C-Class the DTM car, so it was completely different also in the detail. But I was lucky because the original Fujimi box featured this type of ugly rims, which they nearly 99% match to the plastic that Volkswagen added over the ordinary steel rims of this series of Golf. So in this I was absolutely lucky. Plus it stretched a little more than the original Tamiya plastic copy of the alloy Santa Monica wheel, which made the real tire fit completely inside the wheel arch. As you can see here, it fits exactly as it was on the real Golf. And the biggest modification ever is that basically if you check for that ultra rare box, if you are able to find that ultra rare box of the Tamiya Golf MK4, you will also notice that they feature, of course, the 4-door version of the Golf, while my one was the 3-door version, so you had to modify completely the side panels of the original Tamiya kit, taking away the rear door and increasing and reshaping completely the side of the front door. This was a body that many modelers at the time, mostly in Germany, because there was a huge community of enthusiast lover of the real car, wanted me to produce it in resin. But to make that type of resin for me is a very big effort in money, so you have to do something that I personally believe that I have to remain in my field, and my field is always race cars and trucks. So this is what I do in my production. I basically do race car and trucks plus planes, jet planes and something like that, but this is my field. I don't go so easy on vehicles that is the ordinary stuff. Also because honestly, from that box from Tamiya, if you have it to arrive to this type of result, you have to apply a lot of modification, also minor stuff about the interiors. Also the steering wheel was different. I had to modify it because this was what the Volkswagen called in the beginning a comfort line. Instead, of course, the subject of the kit from Tamiya was an I-line, top-notch level of the series, so it was not exactly the same stuff. It was just the basic shape that was absolutely taken, because Tamiya do shapes that is fantastic. About the Golf MK4, you can also find, I think, also that became now quite rare, welly die cast, but of course it's a die cast, so everything became in this type of detail, so I don't think it's possible to compare a model anyway made by hand from a modeler to something that is basically assembled from cheapest die cast company. So that is always something that have to remain in the mind when you consider how to do a model. Maybe I can start from the die cast. Yes, if there is absolutely nothing else on the market, you have to switch to the die cast. Otherwise you have to scratch build it completely from zero, or even worse, try to design it by your own in the 3D. And if you don't have the original mathematics provided by the company, which they did for this type of little panda, because if you take the original box it's Burago diecast, but you see that under it's an official product from Fiat, like they pay all the royalties. You see they have all the royalty pays, and this is a standard box with a little sticker over that they use for the purpose of the model that's inside, but they pay completely the royalty to everybody, and so they have the access to the real mathematics of the real car. So you can work in a different way with a 3D. If you have to design by your own a Golf this way, it would be a nightmare. It would be a nightmare because it's a rounded car. If you're not really skilled in doing this type of job, they will never look the same. I've seen models of some BMW of the 90s, of the 80s, and so on. They say, oh, it's that type of BMW. If it is not a great designer making it, you see at once that the line is not absolutely matching to the car which you remember, you know. And that's it. So this was a huge modification, and I didn't make any cast of this model because it was just a purpose to have it from my side. I also had a very light weathering over the fuel cap here, the little scratch that I had all over, a little dust, you know. Of course, being a work day, an everyday car, it was not cleaned like proper vehicles or like collectible vehicles, and I personally don't like when they are so shiny and so glossy and so perfect. So I added the little dust over the windshield, respecting the shape of the main brushes on the windshield, as well as all the minor scratches that was unfortunately made in Milano traffic at the time. At the time I was living and working over the city, so I had all this type of problem. The model itself is also extremely nice, referred to the original Tamiya box, because they also feature you some metal stickers about the Volkswagen logo that is extremely realistic, as you can see, both from the front end and from the rear panel, you know, is the same stuff, as well as they fortunately provide you the stickers logo, which in reality was slightly bigger than the one that I had to use here, which you can use on the same way if you want to go for this cheaper version of the rim. So this was a model that I made for this personal purpose. That's it, not so much to say. The model is extremely rare. I don't know if you like the Golf 4. If you owned one, you know how good it was, the car and the vehicle, and it's a shame that such vehicles have to be, basically I had to scrap it because of pollution or regulation that they have in the country. So in the area I'm not living here, I live in Sweden, but when I come to Italy, I need a vehicle that is able to cross the city, and with this type of pollutions, I could not absolutely make it. So I basically had to trash a perfect working car because it was still saved exactly in the condition as you see my model. Exactly the same identical stuff. I had to turn it on. She started after 3 years of not used car, because I go around with the Toyota, so it's different. And she started with half of the key, and she ran on the recovery truck to go to the scrap yard by his own leg. So deep respect for Volkswagen. I'm not so sure that the modern Volkswagen are absolutely in the level of quality like this Volkswagen was. And auf Wiedersehen Golf, you have been an extremely great car, but in my showcase you will constantly remain as a model, remembering me that part of my life when I was working in this, exactly in this ridiculous way, inside the a modeling toy fair, of course, when I was going to sell some boxes in the exhibition. That's it, guys. I hope you like the video. Hit in the subscription, hit on the like button, and see you in the next one. Bye.